Did you know that over 1 in 3 Australian households are now under housing stress? And most don't even realize how close they are to losing their homes? That's not a prediction, it's already happening. From skyrocketing interest rates to quiet government policy changes, a storm is brewing. And if you're not paying attention, you could be caught right in the middle of it. What's worse? These changes are happening without headlines, without warnings, and without most people knowing. But in this video, we're going to expose the 10 silent reasons why millions of Australians could lose their homes in 2026 and what you can do to avoid becoming one of them. This isn't about fear, it's about facts and protecting yourself before it's too late. So stay with us because your home might depend on it. Let's start with the most immediate threat to Australian homeowners. Interest rates have skyrocketed, and they're not done yet. In just under 2 years, the Reserve Bank of Australia has lifted the cash rate from 0.10% to over 4%, and that shift has doubled, even tripled monthly mortgage repayments for many families. What used to be a manageable $2,000 a month is now pushing $4,000 or more. And the result? Over 1 million households are now in mortgage stress, meaning they're spending more than 30% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. Many are dipping into savings, racking up credit card debt, or falling behind on bills. And once the late notices start, it doesn't take long before the threat of repossession becomes real. This isn't just affecting low-income households. Middle-income earners, self-employed people, and even dual-income families are struggling to keep up, especially those who took out variable-rate loans during the low-interest boom. Why is this so dangerous? Because rising interest is a slow-moving crisis. Many won't feel the full hit until their fixed rates expire in 2026, and by then, refinancing may no longer be an option. Action tip. If you have a mortgage, review your rate now. Speak to your lender about refinancing, fixing your rate, or negotiating better terms. Even a 0.5% difference could save you thousands per year. Don't wait for the bank to make the first move. Be proactive, because the next interest rate rise could be one payment too many. Imagine working full-time and still not being able to afford a place to live. That's the harsh reality for millions of Australians right now. Across the country, rents have soared to record highs, with some cities seeing increases of 20 to 30% in just 1 year. In Sydney, the average weekly rent has crossed $700, while in Brisbane, it's not uncommon to see bidding wars over even modest apartments. And it's not just happening in big cities. Regional areas that were once considered affordable are also feeling the crunch, driven by increased demand and limited housing supply. For renters, this means being forced into overcrowded homes, living in substandard or unsafe conditions, facing eviction for simply being unable to keep up with rising prices. Even families with stable jobs are being pushed to the edge. According to housing support services, more working Australians are now seeking emergency accommodation than ever before. Why is this such a threat? Because when rent consumes more than 40% of your income, even a small financial emergency, a car breakdown or a medical bill can lead to missed payments and eviction. And for those already on the brink, there's nowhere to go. Vacancy rates are at historic lows, with some suburbs reporting less than 1% availability. Action tip. If you're renting, start looking into rental assistance options, share housing, or regional relocation programs. Don't wait until you're given a 30-day notice. If you're a landlord, work proactively with tenants because a stable renter is better than an empty property. The rental crisis is real and it's not slowing down. Next up, why the end of government support programs could push even more families into homelessness.
During the height of the pandemic, the Australian government rolled out a range of emergency support measures to keep people in their homes. From JobKeeper and JobSeeker boosts to rent freezes, eviction bans and mortgage deferrals, these programs help millions survive a once-in-a-generation crisis. But here's the problem. Those lifelines are now gone. Most of these support schemes quietly ended in late 2023 and 2024, just as interest rates, rent, and inflation began to skyrocket. For many, the withdrawal of these supports was like falling off a financial cliff, and now the consequences are catching up. People who deferred mortgages during COVID are now facing higher repayments with accrued interest. Renters no longer have protections, and evictions are rising in cities across the country. Job seeker payments remain below the poverty line despite record inflation. Emergency housing funds have dried up, leaving vulnerable families waiting months for crisis accommodation. Why is this such a serious issue? Because these schemes didn't just help during a crisis, they held the housing system together. And now, with nothing to replace them, millions are exposed. We're seeing a wave of delayed financial fallout, especially among those who used these programs to delay the inevitable and now face rising debts with no buffer left. Action tip: if you relied on government relief, it's time to create your own safety net. Reach out to financial counselors, negotiate payment plans, and apply early for any remaining rental or utility assistance in your area. The safety net is shrinking, and without action, more Australians will slip right through it. Next, how inflation is quietly draining household budgets and putting homes at risk. If even one of these issues hit close to home, drop a comment. Your story could help someone else feel seen. We put a lot into making videos that matter, so if this helped you, please subscribe. It's just one click, but it keeps us going. You might not see it coming, but you definitely feel it every day. The cost of groceries, fuel, power, water, insurance, and basic necessities has skyrocketed, and for most households, wages haven't kept up. This is what we call silent pressure, and it's pushing families closer to the edge than ever before. In 2026, inflation remains stubbornly high, especially in critical areas like food and housing. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the average household is now spending over $120 more per week on essentials than they did just 2 years ago. That's over $6,000 a year gone. Here's what makes inflation so dangerous. It's not always sudden, but it's relentless. Little by little, your budget shrinks, the savings account dries up, the emergency fund disappears, and before you know it, you're behind on rent or mortgage payments with no financial cushion to fall back on. For fixed-income households, including retirees, single parents, and low-wage workers, this pressure is even more severe. Every dollar counts, and every price hike feels personal. Why is this putting homes at risk? Because when people are forced to choose between food, bills, and housing, rent or mortgage is often the first to fall behind, especially when there's no immediate consequence, until there is. Action tip: start tracking every dollar. Use free budgeting apps to see exactly where your money's going. Cut non-essentials, renegotiate utility plans, and look into cost of living rebates available in your state or territory. Inflation is an invisible thief, but the damage it causes is very real. And the next reason, it explains why, even if you're working hard, you still might not be earning enough.
What happens when your income stays the same, but everything else gets more expensive? You fall behind, and fast. Despite rising interest rates, rental spikes, and soaring grocery costs, wage growth in Australia has remained painfully slow. According to recent figures, average wages have only increased by around 3.5%, while inflation has hovered between 5 to 7% in key sectors like housing, fuel, and food. That means even if you're working full-time or juggling multiple jobs, you're likely earning less in real terms than you were a few years ago. And for many, this widening gap between income and expenses is creating a dangerous ripple effect. Late rent or mortgage payments, increased reliance on credit cards and payday loans, no money left for savings, emergencies, or retirement. Why does this put homes at risk? because housing isn't just about having a roof, it's about being able to afford to keep it. And when income can't stretch far enough to cover the basics, housing is usually the first thing to break. Even more alarming, younger Australians and gig economy workers are hit the hardest. Many are stuck in casual, low-paying roles with no job security, making it almost impossible to keep up with rising living costs, let alone qualify for a mortgage. Action tip: look into upskilling opportunities. Many TAFEs and community centers offer free or low-cost training in high-demand fields. Explore wage subsidies, job switch incentives, or union support programs that can help you boost your income. Because if wages won't rise on their own, you might need to create your own financial upgrade. Coming up, why tougher lending rules are locking people out of help when they need it most. Coming up, why tougher lending rules are locking people out of help when they need it most. You might think the bank is there to help when times get tough, but in 2026, for many Australians, the answer is increasingly no. As economic uncertainty continues, banks and lenders have tightened their lending criteria, making it harder than ever to refinance a mortgage, consolidate debt, or get approved for a home loan. Even people who have never missed a payment are being declined, not because of bad history, but because they no longer meet the new, stricter thresholds. What's changed? Higher minimum income requirements, tighter loan-to-income and debt-to-income ratios, more scrutiny on casual, contract, and gig economy workers, less flexibility for people with existing credit card or personal loan debt. This shift is leaving thousands of households trapped in high-interest mortgages, unable to refinance to a better deal, even if it would lower their repayments. Why is this dangerous? Because it takes away your safety net. When you're struggling with rising costs, refinancing can be a lifeline. But now, more people are being locked out just when they need help most. And it's not just homeowners. First-time buyers are also being shut out of the market, forced to remain in the overheated rental system with no pathway to ownership. Action tip: if you're planning to refinance or apply for a loan, check your credit report immediately. Clear small debts, pay down credit cards, and avoid taking on new loans or afterpay purchases. Speak with a mortgage broker who understands the current lending climate and can guide you toward lenders with more flexible criteria. Because in today's market, the wrong loan or no loan at all can cost you your home. Next, the rise in home repossessions and how quietly it's happening. You won't see it on the front page of the news, but across Australia, property repossessions are quietly on the rise, and it's hitting closer to home than most people realize. In the past 12 months alone, mortgage defaults have increased by over 30%, with some suburbs reporting the highest rates of repossession since the 2008 financial crisis. Families who once had stable incomes and steady repayments are now receiving foreclosure letters after just a few missed payments. So what's causing the spike? Rising interest rates pushing mortgage repayments out of reach, the end of financial relief programs, as we discussed earlier, no safety net left for people living paycheck to paycheck, banks acting faster to reclaim properties due to economic uncertainty. In many cases, these homes are being repossessed without much warning. Once the legal process begins, it can move shockingly fast, with some families being forced out in a matter of weeks. Why is this so serious? Because it often happens silently, behind closed doors. By the time people hear the term repossession, it's already too late. And the impact is devastating, not just financially, but emotionally and mentally. Action tip: if you're struggling with mortgage payments, don't ignore it. Contact your lender immediately and ask about hardship variations. You may be able to pause or reduce payments temporarily. Also, reach out to free financial counseling services before the situation escalates. Remember, the earlier you act, the more options you have. Up next, the lack of affordable housing and why the system is failing to keep up with the crisis. For years, Australians have been told that help is on the way, that new housing projects will ease the pressure. But in 2026, the reality is grim. Affordable housing is still massively undersupplied, and the gap is only widening. Despite growing demand, government investment in social and affordable housing remains far behind what's needed. According to recent data, Australia is short more than 640,000 affordable homes, and that number is climbing every year. The result? Longer waiting lists for public housing, some over 10 years. Low-income families stuck in unsafe or overcrowded rentals. Rising homelessness, even among people with jobs. Vulnerable groups like single parents, seniors, and people with disabilities pushed to the margins. Private developers often focus on high-profit properties, not homes for those in need. Even when new developments are announced, they're frequently delayed, downsized, or priced well above what's considered affordable. Why is this such a big threat? Because when there's nowhere to go, people are forced to compete for overpriced rentals, accept poor living conditions, or face homelessness. It creates a housing system where only the wealthiest survive comfortably, while everyone else is left scrambling. Action tip. If you're struggling with housing costs, register with your state's social housing waitlist as early as possible, even if you think you won't need it right away. Also, explore nonprofit housing organizations and community housing providers, which often have their own application systems and support services. The lack of affordable housing isn't just a policy issue, it's a growing crisis, and it's one we no longer afford to ignore. Next up, how natural disasters and rising insurance premiums are turning safe homes into ticking bombs. Your home is supposed to be your safe place, but what happens when you can't afford to protect it? In recent years, natural disasters have become more frequent and more severe across Australia, from devastating floods in Queensland to bushfires in NSW and cyclones in the north. Entire communities have been left reeling. And with climate change accelerating, the threat is only growing. But here's what most people aren't talking about. The cost of home insurance has exploded, especially in high-risk areas. In some regions, premiums have risen by over 50% in just 2 years, and some homeowners have seen quotes double or even triple. This has created a heartbreaking dilemma. Pay the sky-high premiums to stay protected, or go uninsured and hope disaster doesn't strike. Many families are choosing the second option, not by choice, but because they simply can't afford the coverage anymore. Why is this so dangerous? Because one storm, one fire, one flood can wipe out everything you own, and without insurance, there's no financial safety net to rebuild. This can lead to forced sales, homelessness, and complete financial ruin, even for families who've owned their homes for decades. Action tip. If your premiums have jumped, don't just accept the first quote. Shop around using independent comparison sites and consider higher excess options to lower costs. Also, check if your area qualifies for state or federal disaster risk subsidies. In 2026, insurance is no longer optional. It's essential, but it shouldn't be unreachable. And now, let's talk about the final and most overlooked reason so many Australians could lose their homes: silent policy shifts. Not all threats come with headlines or warnings. Some slip quietly through Parliament, buried in fine print until it's too late to act. In 2026, one of the most overlooked dangers to Australian homeowners is a wave of silent policy changes happening at both state and federal levels, and they're already affecting property values, housing security, and home ownership rights. We're talking about policies like land tax reforms that increase costs for property owners and investors, changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax, new zoning laws that affect what you can do with your property, stricter compliance rules for landlords and short-term rentals, shifting eligibility criteria for government housing support. Individually, these might seem minor, but together they form a perfect storm, and many Australians are unaware these changes are even happening. For instance, some state governments are reviewing how land tax is calculated, potentially impacting thousands of mom and dad investors who rely on rental income for retirement. Others are adjusting building codes that require costly upgrades or making it harder to develop or subdivide. Why does this matter? Because these quiet changes can erode property value, increase ownership costs, or push landlords out of the market, which in turn drives rents higher and makes housing even less accessible. Action tip: stay informed. Sign up for updates from your state's housing department and follow independent housing policy watchdogs. If you own property, speak to a tax advisor or financial planner to understand how these shifts may affect you. These policy changes may be silent, but their impact could be loud and life-changing. Now, let's bring it all together with a powerful conclusion and action plan. What we've uncovered today isn't just a list of problems, it's a wake-up call. From rising interest rates to hidden policy shifts, housing stress in Australia has reached a breaking point. Whether you're a homeowner, renter, investor, or just starting to think about the future, the risks are real and the safety nets are shrinking. But here's the thing, you're not powerless. The worst mistake you can make right now is to ignore the signs or assume it won't happen to me. The truth is, millions of Australians are just one missed payment, one policy change, or one disaster away from losing the roof over their heads. That's why staying informed, being proactive, and taking control of your situation is more important than ever. This video wasn't made to scare you, it was made to prepare you. Because when you understand the threats, you can take steps to protect yourself, your family, and your future. And that's exactly what we'll show you how to do next, with clear, actionable solutions anyone can start today. Here's what you can do right now to stay ahead of the crisis and safeguard your home. 1. Review your finances. Go through your budget line by line. Identify rising expenses, reduce unnecessary costs, and find ways to free up cash flow. Use budgeting apps or free templates to get a clear picture of where your money's going. 2. Contact your lender or landlord. If you're falling behind, don't wait. Speak with your bank about hardship assistance or negotiate rent with your landlord. Being upfront can buy you time and options. 3. Check for support programs. Every state has housing, rental, and utility support programs. Visit your local government website or speak to a community financial counselor to find what's available. 4. Insure smart. Don't leave your home vulnerable. Compare insurance providers, ask about discounts, and adjust your policy to ensure you're covered but not overpaying. 5. Stay informed on policy changes. Subscribe to updates from housing departments, watchdogs, and financial advisors. Policy shifts often come quietly, but awareness is your best defense. 6. Plan for the long term. If you're renting, consider saving toward a deposit, exploring shared ownership schemes, or moving to more affordable regions. If you own a home, get advice on how to keep it sustainable long term. You don't need to be wealthy to be secure. You just need a plan, and that plan starts today. What worries you most about Australia's housing future? Tell us in the comments. Your voice might help someone else feel less alone. And if you haven't seen our last video on the pension rule changes, go check it out. It connects directly to what we discussed today. We pour time, research, and heart into every video to keep you informed. So if this helped you, please support us by subscribing. It's just one click for you, but it means the world to us.